My name is Princess Aaliyah bint Fahd. I am 18 years old. And 3 weeks ago, Jesus Christ appeared inside my classroom in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in front of over 60 Muslim girls. What I am about to tell you is not safe. It is not allowed. It has already cost me my family's trust, my royal protection, and possibly my life. But I cannot stay silent, because what happened to me is happening to others across the Middle East right now. Jesus is appearing where no one expects him. He is manifesting in classrooms, speaking perfect Arabic, calling Muslims by name. He is walking through the most restricted places on earth as if walls and guards mean nothing to him. This is my story. This is how a Saudi princess raised in Islam, trained for perfection, came face to face with the King of Kings. And this is why I had to leave everything behind to tell you what I saw. Riyadh is a city the world knows by name but will never truly see. Riyadh is powerful, modern, ambitious, a skyline of glass and steel rising from ancient desert sands. But it is also a city of walls, a city of silence, a city where questioning the wrong thing can erase your entire existence. I grew up in a world most Saudis will never experience. My father is a senior member of the Royal Advisory Council. Our home is not just a house, it is a compound. Guards at every gate. Cameras in every corridor. Privacy wrapped in pressure, privilege buried under expectation. I attended Al Noor Royal Academy on the western edge of Riyadh, near the diplomatic quarter. It was not a school for normal families. It was a school for the daughters of princes, ministers, generals, and diplomats. The building itself was magnificent, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, architecture that whispered power. But inside it was a fortress of control. We studied the Quran every morning before anything else. We studied Arabic literature, science, politics, and international relations, but always through the lens of the kingdom's vision. We were taught that we carried the future, that our behavior reflected the honor of our families, that our silence protected the nation. Our teachers were strict. Clerics visited regularly to ensure our spiritual development and remind us that we were not just students, we were future mothers of the kingdom's elite. I never questioned any of it. I was the perfect princess. I prayed. I obeyed. I memorized. I smiled when I was supposed to smile and stayed silent when I was supposed to stay silent. But there was something I never told anyone. I loved my family. I respected my father. I honored my heritage. But when I prayed, my lips moved and my soul felt distant. When I recited verses, the words felt like they were bouncing off a ceiling that never opened. I thought something was wrong with me, that I was not devoted enough, not pure enough, not faithful enough. So I tried harder. I prayed longer. I fasted more. I perfected every gesture, every ritual, every response. But the emptiness only grew deeper. At night, alone in my bedroom overlooking the Riyadh skyline, I would stare at the glittering lights and wonder if this was all there was. A life of performance, a life of pressure, a life of trying to reach a heaven that felt impossibly far away. I am telling you all of this because I want you to understand who I was before that Tuesday morning. I was not a rebel. I was not searching for answers outside Islam. I was exactly what the system wanted me to be, obedient, polished, loyal. I had no reason to doubt. I had everything a Saudi girl could ever want: security, status, protection, a future already mapped out in royal corridors. My life stretched before me like a straight line drawn by others' hands. And I was ready to walk it without hesitation. But God, the real God, had other plans. Because on a quiet Tuesday morning in November, in a classroom at Al Noor Royal Academy in Riyadh, everything I knew shattered. And I mean everything. What happened to me and to 63 other girls that day is not something I can keep silent about. Even if it costs me my name. Even if it costs me my family. Even if it costs me my life. I do not know where I will be when you read these words. I do not know if I am being hunted, if I am in hiding, or if I have already been found. But I know this: what I saw was real. What I heard was real. What I felt was real. And no threat, no power, no kingdom on this earth can make me deny him. It happened on a Tuesday morning in November. The kind of morning that gives you no warning. The kind of morning where the desert sky is so clear and blue it almost hurts to look at. The sun was already warm by 8 o'clock, pouring through the tall windows of Al-Noor Academy like liquid gold. Our first class was Quran studies. It always was. 64 of us sat in perfect rows, our desks aligned like soldiers, our hijabs neatly pinned, our spines straight. Madam Samira stood at the front of the room, her black abaya crisp, her voice calm and measured as she opened her worn copy of the Quran and began to recite. Everything felt normal. Safe. Predictable. I remember staring at the Arabic script in my own book, tracing the curves of the letters with my eyes, letting the familiar rhythm of her voice wash over me. I had heard these verses 1,000 times. I had memorized them. I had recited them myself. And then, the air shifted. At first, I thought it was the sunlight. Maybe the angle had changed. Maybe a cloud had passed. But when I looked up, I realized the light wasn't coming from the windows anymore. It was coming from inside the room. Soft. Golden. Alive. Girls around me began to whisper. Someone gasped. Madam Samira stopped reading mid-sentence, her mouth still open, her eyes wide. I lifted my head fully, and my breath caught in my throat. There, in the center of our classroom, between the rows of desks, stood a man. He wore a white robe that didn't look like fabric. It looked like light had been woven into cloth, shimmering and pure and impossibly bright. His presence filled the room in a way I can't explain. It wasn't loud or forceful, but it was undeniable. Like gravity. Like the weight of the sun. Like something so real it made everything else feel like a shadow. I couldn't look directly at his face. The light was too bright, too pure. But somehow, I saw his eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't distant. They weren't judging. They were filled with a love so overwhelming, so complete, that I felt it in my bones. A love I had never felt in my entire life. Not from my parents. Not from my teachers. Not from anyone. The room went completely still. Some girls started to cry. Others fell to their knees, their hands covering their faces. A few backed against the walls, trembling, too terrified to move. And then he spoke. Not loudly. Not harshly. But clearly, in perfect, flawless Arabic. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. The moment his words entered my ears, something inside my chest shattered. Not painfully, but like a dam breaking. Like walls I had built for 18 years suddenly crumbling to dust. The emptiness I had carried for so long, the void I thought was my fault, the distance I thought I deserved, suddenly had a name. It wasn't me. It was him. I had been searching for him my whole life without even knowing it. He looked at all of us, 64 girls frozen in shock and awe. But somehow, in a way I cannot explain, he looked at me. Personally. Individually. Like I was the only person in the room. And then, as quickly as he had appeared, the light began to fade. The brilliance softened. The presence lifted. The air returned to normal. He was gone. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. No one even breathed. We just sat there, staring at the empty space where he had been, trying to understand what had just happened. And then, chaos erupted. The screaming started first. High-pitched, panicked, uncontrollable. Girls stumbling out of their seats, clutching each other, sobbing into their hijabs. Some collapsed to the floor. Others pressed themselves against the walls, shaking, their faces drained of color. Madame Samira stood frozen at the front of the room, her Quran still open in her trembling hands, her lips moving but no sound coming out. Within seconds, the door burst open. Teachers flooded in from the hallway, Madame Fatima, Madame Zara, our headmistress Madame Khalid. Their faces twisted with alarm as they took in the scene, 64 girls in complete disarray, some on their knees, others weeping uncontrollably. What happened? Madame Khalid demanded, her voice sharp as a blade. What is going on here? No one could answer. We didn't have words. Then came the security guards, 3 of them, then 5, their radios crackling, their boots heavy on the marble floor. They scanned the room like it was a crime scene, looking for intruders, for evidence, for anything that made sense. But there was nothing. No broken windows. No signs of forced entry. Just 64 girls who had seen something impossible. Separate them, Madame Khalid ordered. Now. We were pulled apart, dragged into different classrooms, different hallways, different corners of the building. I was taken to the headmistress's office, a stark room with high ceilings and a heavy wooden desk that smelled like old books and authority. 2 teachers stood on either side of me. Madame Khalid sat across from me, her eyes cold and calculating. Aaliyah, she said slowly. Tell me exactly what you took. I blinked. I didn't take anything. Drugs. Pills. Something one of you brought in. What was it? Nothing, I whispered. We didn't. Who planned this? She snapped. Was it a prank? A coordinated stunt? Tell me who organized it. My throat tightened. No one organized anything. We were just sitting in class and then. Then what? I couldn't say it. Not to her. Not like this. Did someone enter the room? She pressed. A man? A stranger? Did someone break in? No, I said, my voice cracking. Nothing entered. Someone appeared. Her expression hardened. She leaned back in her chair, folded her arms, and stared at me like I was a problem to be solved. You will never speak of this again, she said flatly. Do you understand me? I nodded, but my hands were shaking. By noon, the entire school was on lockdown. Parents were summoned. Security cameras were pulled and reviewed, though they would find nothing, I already knew. Clerics were brought in to pray over our classroom, to cleanse it, to chase away whatever spirit or jinn they thought had invaded. We were told it was mass hysteria. A psychological episode. Girls under pressure, imaginations running wild. But I knew better. We all did. When my father arrived, his face was tight with a fear I had never seen before. Not anger, fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize something is beyond your control. He said nothing in front of the staff. But when we got into the car, the silence was suffocating. At home, he brought me into his private study and closed the door. Aaliyah, he said quietly, his voice strained. Forget what you think you saw. Baba. No. He held up a hand, cutting me off. His eyes were hard, but his hands trembled. Whatever happened today, whatever you girls experienced, it does not leave that classroom. Your safety depends on silence. Do you understand? I stared at him. My father, who advised Princess. My father, who commanded respect in every room he entered. My father, who looked terrified. Do you understand? He repeated. I nodded. But inside, my heart screamed the opposite. He let me go. I walked upstairs to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed, staring out at the Riyadh skyline. The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. Everything looked the same. But nothing was the same. I kept hearing his words. I am the way, the truth, and the life. They weren't from the Quran. I knew that much. But where were they from? Who was he? Why did he come? The questions burned inside me like fire. That night, alone in the darkness, curiosity became unbearable. I had to know.
I waited until midnight. The house was silent. My parents had gone to bed hours ago. The guards outside changed shifts at 11:30, and for 15 minutes, the cameras in the hallways reset. I slipped out of my room barefoot, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Our palace library was on the first floor, past the formal sitting room, down a corridor lined with portraits of my grandfather and great-uncles. It was my father's private space, shelves of leather-bound books, mahogany furniture, and in the corner, a computer system he used for international affairs. No filters, no restrictions, no government monitoring. He trusted no one would touch it. I did. My hands shook as I hovered on the screen. The glow felt too bright in the darkness, like it might wake the entire compound. I pulled the chair closer, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I typed the words exactly as I had heard them. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The search results loaded. John 14:6. My breath caught. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus, not Isa the prophet we were taught about, a man who performed miracles and spoke truth but was still just a man. Jesus, claiming to be the only way, the only truth, the only life. These were not the words of a prophet. These were the words of God. I clicked link after link. The Gospels opened before me like doors I had never known existed. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Stories of miracles, blind eyes opened, lame men walking, dead people rising. Stories of love, Jesus touching lepers, eating with sinners, welcoming children. And then, his death, his resurrection. I read until my eyes burned, until the sky outside began to lighten, until I realized I had been holding my breath. Everything I had been taught about Isa felt small compared to this. We were told he was a prophet, yes, but one among many. We were told he didn't die on a cross, that someone else was crucified in his place. We were told he would return one day, but only as a follower of the Mahdi. But this Jesus claimed to be God. He said he came to die. He said he rose from the dead. He said belief in him was the only way to the Father. It was blasphemy. Or it was truth. And if it was truth, if the man who appeared in my classroom was really who he said he was, then everything I had built my life on was a lie. Fear gripped me. Excitement. Confusion. Wonder. All of it at once, swirling inside me like a storm I couldn't control. I heard footsteps in the hallway. I shut down the computer, my pulse racing, and slipped back upstairs just as the household began to wake. 2 days later, during lunch, my friend Noor leaned close to me in the cafeteria. Her hand brushed mine, and I felt something small and hard pressed into my palm. A phone. Tiny. Cheap. Untraceable. I saw him too, she whispered, her voice barely audible. And I've been searching. My throat tightened. I wasn't alone. Within a week, 4 more girls joined us. Then 6. Then 8. We met in secret. Empty hallways between classes, corners of the garden during breaks, storage rooms no one used. We passed around a single printed copy of the Gospel of John, its pages already worn from being read and reread. We whispered prayers we didn't fully understand yet. We asked questions we had never been allowed to ask. We cried together when the weight of what we were doing, what we were risking, became too much. Something was growing among us. Something bigger than fear. Bigger than the walls that surrounded us. But as the days passed, I realized something else. Curiosity wasn't enough. Knowledge wasn't enough. Reading about him wasn't the same as knowing him. I didn't just want to understand who Jesus was. I needed him. I waited until everyone was asleep. My door was locked. My curtains drawn. The compound outside was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic on Kingford Road. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands folded in my lap, staring at the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs. What I was about to do felt more dangerous than sneaking into my father's library. More dangerous than the secret meetings with Noor and the others. This was direct. Personal. Forbidden. I took a breath and closed my eyes. My voice was barely a whisper. If you are real, if you are who you say you are, come to me. Silence. I waited, my pulse loud in my ears, half expecting nothing. Half terrified something would happen. And then, the room changed. Not suddenly. Not violently. But undeniably. The air became warm. Not hot. Not oppressive. Alive. Like the atmosphere itself was breathing. Light began to fill the space. Soft, golden, the same light I had seen in the classroom. But this time it wasn't frightening. It was welcoming. Safe. I opened my eyes. He was there. Standing near my window, his white robe glowing faintly in the darkness, overlooking the Riyadh skyline like a king watching over his city. My legs gave way. I slid off the bed and sunk onto the carpet, my hands pressed to the floor, my breath coming in short gasps. I wanted to look away. I wanted to run. But I couldn't move. He turned toward me. And then he spoke my name. Aaliyah. No one had ever said it like that. Not with authority. Not with judgment. But with a tenderness so deep it shattered something inside me. Tears filled my eyes. Do not be afraid, he said, his voice gentle but steady. I did not come to give you religion. I came to give you life. I shook my head, barely able to speak. I'm scared, I whispered. He smiled. Not mockingly. Not distantly. But with a warmth that felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Perfect love drives out fear, he said. I chose you before you chose me. The words hit me like a wave. Chose me. Before I chose him. Before I even knew his name. Before I prayed that desperate prayer in the darkness. Before I was born. In that moment, every wall I had built for 18 years collapsed. The performance, the perfect prayers, the perfect manners, the perfect obedience, all of it crumbled to dust. The loneliness I had carried, the emptiness I had tried to fill, the pressure I had lived under, gone. He hadn't come because I was perfect. He came because he loved me. I pressed my forehead to the carpet, tears streaming down my face. I believe, I whispered. I believe you. The light grew brighter, not blinding, but enveloping. It wrapped around me like peace itself, like arms I couldn't see but could feel holding me together. The fear drained out of my body. The doubt dissolved. Everything I had been searching for my entire life was standing right in front of me. Not a religion. Not a set of rules. Not a distant deity I had to earn. A person. Someone who knew me. Who saw me. Who loved me. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. I don't know how long I stayed there on the floor, wrapped in that light, feeling his presence. Minutes. Maybe hours. Time didn't seem to matter. And then, slowly, the light began to fade. I looked up. He was gone. But I was not the same. I sat back on my heels, staring at the place where he had stood. My hands were still shaking. My face was wet with tears. But inside, I felt alive in a way I had never felt before. The emptiness was gone. The questions were gone. I knew who he was. And I knew who I was now. I was his. The morning after he appeared in my room, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I met Noor in the garden during our midday break. We sat on a stone bench beneath a palm tree, pretending to study but speaking in voices so low no one else could hear. "We can't hide forever," she said, her eyes tired but determined. "If this is real, and we know it is, how can we keep it to ourselves?" I nodded, my chest tight. "But if we speak—" "I know," she whispered. "We lose everything." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of that truth settling over us. But then I remembered his words. "I did not come to give you religion. I came to give you life. Life. Real life. Not the half-life I had been living before. Truth this powerful can't stay hidden," I said quietly. "If he appeared to us, he wants us to tell others." Noor reached for my hand and squeezed it. "Then we tell them." It took 3 days to arrange. Noor's cousin worked for an international news agency and had contacts outside the kingdom, people who understood how to move information safely, how to protect sources, how to get stories out without getting people killed. We recorded in a small apartment on the outskirts of Riyadh. No palace backgrounds. No royal symbols. Just plain walls, basic lighting, and our faces. 8 of us came. 8 girls who had been in that classroom. 8 girls who had seen him. I spent the night before writing out what I would say, crossing out lines, rewriting sentences, my hands trembling every time I thought about what this would cost. Some of the other girls shared their stories too. Laila described how she had been paralyzed with fear when the light appeared but felt overwhelming peace afterward. Hala talked about dreaming of him every night since. Amina admitted she had tried to convince herself it was a hallucination, until he appeared to her, too, in her own home. We weren't crazy. We weren't making it up. We had all seen the same thing. When the camera turned on, my hands shook so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. The red light blinked. Someone nodded at me. It was time. I took a breath and looked directly into the lens. "My name is Aaliyah," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I am 18 years old. I am Saudi. And 3 weeks ago, Jesus appeared in my classroom to over 60 Muslim students." The words poured out of me. I told them about the light, about his presence, about the love in his eyes, about the words he spoke in perfect Arabic. I told them about the lockdown, the interrogation, the fear. And then I told them about the second visitation, about inviting him into my room, about him speaking my name, about surrendering everything to him. "I know what this will cost me," I said, tears slipping down my face. "I know my family will disown me. I know I might lose my life. But I cannot deny what I saw. I cannot deny who he is. Jesus is real. He is alive. And he is calling Muslims to himself all across the Middle East." When I finished, the room was silent except for the quiet sound of others crying. We recorded for 2 hours. 8 testimonies. 8 girls who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That night, the video was uploaded to multiple platforms simultaneously: YouTube, Telegram, Twitter, encrypted networks used by underground churches. None of us slept. We sat together in that small apartment, phones in our hands, refreshing screens, watching the view count climb. 10 views. 50. 200. Then 1,000. Then 10,000. By dawn, the number was in the hundreds of thousands. Comments flooded in, some in Arabic, some in English, some in Farsi, Urdu, Turkish. Messages of shock. Messages of belief. Messages of anger. Messages of hope. Noor looked at me, her face pale but resolute. "It's out there now," she whispered. "There's no going back." I nodded, staring at my phone as the numbers kept rising. Within hours, the internet exploded. By noon, We were everywhere. Twitter, Telegram, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. The video had been clipped, subtitled, translated, shared thousands of times over. My face, our faces, appeared on screens across the world. Arabic hashtags trended within hours. Hush Saudi princess testimony, hush Jesus India, hush Muslim girl see Jesus. The Middle East erupted in response. Some called us brave. Others called us traitors. Imams recorded videos denouncing us. Scholars debated whether we had been possessed by jinn or were part of a Western conspiracy. Then the Christian networks picked it up. Ministries in America, Europe, Asia. They reposted our testimonies with captions like, "Miraculous, Jesus appearing to Muslims," and "The greatest move of God in the Middle East." Pastors shared it from pulpits. Prayer groups circulated it on WhatsApp. Within 24 hours, news agencies started asking questions. A Saudi princess claims Jesus appeared in her school. Viral testimony sparks debate across the Islamic world. Is this mass delusion or divine intervention? The comment sections were chaos. This is real. I've heard similar stories from Iran. Propaganda. The West is behind this. My cousin saw Jesus too. In Cairo. This is happening everywhere. These girls are lying for attention. May Allah guide them back to the truth. Jesus is calling his people home. But the comments that shook me most were from other girls in our classroom, girls who hadn't been part of the recording but couldn't stay silent anymore. Huda posted her testimony on TikTok. I was there. I saw him. Aaliyah is telling the truth. Reem uploaded a voice recording on Telegram. I thought I was going crazy. But I wasn't. He was real. One by one, more voices joined. Girls who had been terrified to speak, who had been threatened into silence, who thought they were alone, they found courage because we had spoken first. And then reports started coming from beyond Saudi Arabia. A girl in Tehran claimed Jesus appeared in her bedroom. A young man in Cairo said he saw him in a dream and woke up weeping. A woman in Amman testified that he spoke to her while she was praying in a mosque. The testimonies poured in, dozens, then hundreds. Muslims across the Middle East encountering Jesus in ways that defied explanation. The message was spreading faster than anyone could suppress it. We had moved to a safe house by then, a small apartment far from the royal district, arranged by the same contacts who had helped us record. I sat on a borrowed mattress, scrolling through my phone, watching my own face appear on screen after screen. It felt surreal, terrifying, exhilarating. But the kingdom didn't stay silent for long. By the second day, official responses began. Government spokesmen called it psychological manipulation by foreign agents. State-controlled media aired segments claiming we had been drugged or brainwashed. Clerics issued fatwas condemning us as apostates. My father's name appeared in the news. Senior royal official's daughter involved in viral apostasy scandal. I could only imagine the pressure he was under. The shame. The rage. The fear. Noor's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, her face going pale. It's my uncle, she whispered. He says the authorities are looking for us. They're questioning families. Searching homes. My stomach twisted. Another message came through, this time to my phone. A number I didn't recognize. Aaliyah. You need to leave. Now. They know where you are. I stared at the words, my hands shaking. Noor looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. What do we do? Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was the contact who had helped us record, the one with connections outside the kingdom. I answered. His voice was urgent, clipped. Listen carefully. You are no longer safe there. The net is closing. If you want to survive, you need to move tonight. My heart pounded. Where do we go? I'll send coordinates. Pack light. Tell no one. And Aaliyah, he paused. Once you leave, you can't come back. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, the weight of his words sinking in. This was it. The point of no return. The official announcement came the next morning. My family's royal protection had been withdrawn. My name, Princess Aaliyah bint Fahd, was removed from public records. In the eyes of the kingdom, I no longer existed. My father sent one message. Just one. You are no longer safe here. 5 words. No explanation. No anger. No plea for me to come home and recant. Just a warning. And beneath it, though he couldn't say it, I heard something else: heartbreak. My mother never reached out. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. I wondered if she wanted to. If she held her phone in her hands late at night, typing and deleting messages she would never send. I wondered if she cried for me. If she prayed for me, though now, her prayers and mine were no longer to the same God. The silence hurt more than any words could have. I sat in the safe house and made a list in my mind of everything I had lost. My title, my security, my family, my home, my identity, my privilege. Everything that had defined me for 18 years, gone. But even as I mourned, I felt something else rising inside me. Freedom. The underground network moved quickly. Believers we had never met, Christians who had been operating in secret for years, activated a chain of safe houses, contacts, and escape routes that stretched beyond the kingdom's borders. "You're not the first," one of them told me over an encrypted call. "And you won't be the last." We had 2 hours to prepare. I packed a small backpack, a change of clothes, a phone, a portable charger, and tucked inside a pocket, a printed copy of the Gospel of John that Noor had given me. That was it. Everything I owned now fit in a bag I could carry on my back. Before we left, I walked through the safe house one last time, thinking of the palace I would never see again. The marble floors, the gardens, my bedroom overlooking the Riyadh skyline. Rooms filled with memories of a life I no longer belonged to. I was saying goodbye, not just to a place, but to the person I used to be. The princess who obeyed without question. The girl who performed perfection. The daughter who carried her family's honor in silence. She was gone. And in her place stood someone new. Someone who had met Jesus. Someone who could never go back. Not all of the girls could leave. Some had younger siblings to protect. Some had families who watched them too closely. Some were too afraid. Before I left, Noor held my hands tightly, tears streaming down her face. "We will not forget what we saw," she whispered fiercely. "Even if we have to stay silent for now, we will not forget." I nodded, unable to speak. "Go," she said, "and tell the world what he did." The escape happened in the dead of night. A car with no plates. A driver whose face I never saw. Back roads that wound through the outskirts of Riyadh, past neighborhoods I didn't recognize, heading toward the desert. I sat in the back seat, my backpack clutched to my chest, watching the city lights grow smaller and smaller in the distance. Riyadh. The only home I had ever known. I thought I would feel devastated. Destroyed. Lost. But as the lights faded into darkness, I realized something. I didn't feel rich anymore. I felt free. Because I had seen him. I had heard his voice. I had felt his love. I had been chosen by the King of Kings, and no throne, no title, no palace could compare to that. The car drove on through the night, carrying me toward a future I couldn't see. Away from everything I had known. Away from everyone I loved. But not away from him. Never away from him. Because when Jesus appears, even in the heart of Saudi Arabia, even in a classroom full of Muslim girls, even in the bedroom of a princess who thought she had everything, nothing stays the same. Nothing ever stays the same. The movement has not stopped. If anything, it has accelerated. Every week, new testimonies reach me. Every month, the reports multiply. ASR remains the moment when heaven breaks through. The afternoon prayer that was once routine has become the doorway to divine encounter. Across Saudi Arabia, In mosques from Riyadh to Jeddah, from Mecca to Medina, from wealthy compounds to rural villages, Muslims are meeting Jesus during prayer. Not in dreams, not in visions during sleep, but in the middle of Islamic worship, while they are awake, alert, surrounded by other believers who see nothing unusual. And I am a witness to what God is secretly doing inside the most closed kingdom on earth. My identity has shifted so completely that I barely recognize the woman I was 3 years ago. I was a princess who thought royalty meant palaces and titles and bloodlines. Now I understand that true royalty comes from belonging to the kingdom of God, a kingdom not built on wealth or power or control, but on grace, truth, and love. I thought freedom meant choosing my own clothes or traveling without permission or making decisions about my own life. Now I know that real freedom came when I surrendered to Jesus. When I stopped performing and started trusting. When I exchanged the weight of religious obligation for the rest of relationship. What is happening in Saudi Arabia carries significance far beyond our borders. It is proof that no place is too closed for God. No government too powerful. No religious system too entrenched. No nation too hostile. It is a demonstration of Jesus' personal love for Muslims, not a distant, theological love, but an intimate, name-calling, presence-manifesting love that meets people exactly where they are. It is hope for religious transformation across the entire Middle East and beyond. If God can move in Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, the guardian of Mecca and Medina, the nation most committed to preserving Islamic purity, then He can move anywhere. So let me speak directly to you, whoever you are, wherever you are reading this. God is moving in impossible places. Right now. While governments sleep and religious authorities pretend nothing is happening, Jesus is walking into prayer halls, calling people by name, offering them life. He meets people where they are, not where religious leaders say they should be, not where tradition demands, but where they are, broken, searching, hungry, waiting. Prayer can become encounter. It does not have to be empty ritual or mechanical recitation. It can be the moment when heaven touches earth, when the divine breaks through, when everything changes. And truth cannot be permanently suppressed. You can ban Bibles. You can criminalize conversion. You can monitor internet searches and imprison questioners and threaten families. But you cannot stop God from revealing Himself to people who are desperate for Him. I am asking you to do something. Pray for Saudi believers. Pray for the millions who have encountered Jesus but are navigating this journey alone, afraid, and isolated. Pray for their protection, their growth, their courage. Share this testimony. Let people know what God is doing. The world needs to hear that the impossible is happening. Trust God's sovereignty in closed nations. He is not limited by political systems or religious restrictions. He is not waiting for permission from governments or approval from religious councils. And believe for similar movements worldwide. If it is happening in Saudi Arabia, it can happen in Iran, in North Korea, in any place that seems impenetrable to the gospel. Because the story is not finished. It is still unfolding. More testimonies arrive daily. The movement remains underground, but it is unstoppable. Jesus continues to appear in ASR prayers, calling Muslims out of performance and into relationship, out of fear and into freedom. I dream of a day when Saudi believers can worship openly. When testimonies that now hide in whispers fill stadiums. When the underground church becomes visible, celebrated, undeniable. When the world sees what God has done in secret and marvels at His faithfulness. I dream of a Saudi Arabia transformed, not through political revolution or military intervention, but through millions of individual encounters with the living Christ. That day has not yet come, but it is coming. I stand at my palace window now, the same window where this story began, watching the call to ASR echo across Riyadh. The muezzin's voice carries over marble buildings and luxury compounds, over poor neighborhoods and royal estates, summoning the faithful to prayer. But I no longer hear it the same way. I hear it as an invitation to divine encounter. As the moment when heaven touches earth. As the beginning of Saudi Arabia's greatest awakening. Somewhere in this city, right now, someone is kneeling for ASR prayer. The room around them is about to become light. Time is about to slow. A presence they cannot explain is about to fill the space. And they are about to hear their name, spoken by the one who gave his life so they could find theirs. The government does not know what is happening. The religious establishment pretends nothing has changed. But in prayer lines across the kingdom, hearts are waking up. Jesus is walking into ASR. And I am no longer just a princess of Saudi Arabia. I am a witness to the greatest secret in the Muslim world. And this is only the beginning.